The aughts looked back on the successes of the 90s and knew exactly what they could do next. Welcome to my channel, KC, that's me, Carrie Chug the Sludge Storyteller, and here's the last of my superhero cartoons through the decades videos, and I'm stopping at the aughts because the number of series was an overwhelmingly massive project of itself, and it gets that much bigger for the 20 teens, so stopping here. And for this video, same rules, no teams of robots, no sword and sorcery, no special paramilitary forces, and no anthropomorphic animals, and lastly, no animated movies, just series. Starting with the Justice League in 2001 on Cartoon Network, 9 years after we got Batman the Animated Series, and 5 years after we got Superman the Animated Series, the creative team with standout Bruce Timm brought in so much more of the superhero roster of DC Comics. It started small by adding Wonder Woman, John Stewart Green Lantern, Wally West Flash, Martian Manhunter, and Hawkgirl. Kevin Conroy returned as Batman, as we all hoped, but Tim Daly, he was unavailable to play Superman because he was playing the title role in the remake of the Fugitive TV series, so George Newbern took over as Superman. The same year he took on the role of Lex Luthor in Smallville. Michael Rosenbaum also voiced the Flash. We got Susan Eisenberg, Phil Lamar, Carl Lumbly, and Maria Canales-Barrera voicing Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Hawkgirl, respectively. The pilot had them pitting themselves against the White Martians, and in subsequent episodes dealing with unrest in Green Lantern's expanded realm, Wonder Woman's island of Themyscira, intergalactic battles where Superman battles Mongrel and also against the familiar Lex Luthor leading the Injustice gang. The second season was essentially the same core roster, so the first 2 seasons were played safe. With the modified title of Justice League Unlimited, the creative team decided that they wanted to have fun with whichever other DC superhero they could create a good story for, with such second-tier characters as then Captain Marvel, now Shazam, Captain Atom, Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Wildcat, and doesn't stop there at all. If you were reading DC Comics, you were feeling the fan service that didn't cheapen it with half-hearted storytelling. Every character was given a well-fleshed-out story. Then you have the Batman. It came out in 2004. Speaking for myself, I was loaded with anticipation of Batman Begins, just 9 months away. So this was essentially just another Batman show to tie me over until then. It was developed by Michael Goguen and Dwayne Capizzi. The long-established Timmverse, as is often called, was still going strong because of Justice League, and perhaps its audience was largely made of those who grew up with it, going clear back to Batman the Animated Series, its own beginning in 1992. What was then Kids WB Saturday morning block of the then WB network, the execs thought that they could come up with a fresh series that catered primarily to Gen Z, and while the plots weren't as complex as what we had seen in the Timmverse, the action was very fluid and fast-paced. And while we have a Batman just 3 years into his crime-fighting career, Batman is voiced by Rino Romano, this just after he had finished voicing Spider-Man and Spider-Man Unlimited, and he had a bit part voicing a thug in the Batman Beyond pilot. And while I don't quite get why they designed Batman's jawline the way they did, I love how jacked they made him look, and for clarity, I've always looked more favorably on a Batmobile design that prioritizes practical and make it more of a sedan in size. Hence, while I favored Timmverse Batman more for storytelling, I much prefer the Batman Batmobile over needs an 8-lane highway to U-turn animated series Batmobile. They took a lot of liberties with villains that I thought mostly worked. We get a highly exaggerated Joker, mullet and all, voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. Mr. Freeze got a new streamlined design and could generate his own freeze blast rather than have to use a gun, and he was voiced by Timmverse Lex Luthor, Clancy Brown. Penguin was an aristocratic outcast wanting to regain the Cobblepot family fortune, and as short as he was, he could deliver a formidable barrage of kicks. He was voiced by SpongeBob himself, Tom Kenny. Riddler got much darker with deadlier traps, and you pick up on that angle that they're taking as you hear him being voiced by Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. Bane, on the other hand, got a complete makeover, and not one that I'm very fond of, but He was voiced by the Timverse Clayface Ron Perlman, also the live-action Hellboy. As they set up Robin's origin story in the series, Kevin Conroy voiced his ill-fated dad, and 60s Batman Adam West voiced Mayor Grant. Batgirl came first, voiced by Danielle Judovitz as sidekick before Robin, ironically, but he eventually came and he was voiced by Evan Sabara. After 3 seasons, they upped things thematically to be a little more mature, with the addition of writers Paul Dini and Alan Burnett, who were key writers of the Timverse animated series. They also modified Batman's character design. He had a little bit more of a square jaw. He also redesigned the Batmobile after wrecking it, making it more elongated, but it didn't kill the series of my enjoying it. I did still enjoy it, and the new writers kept things in line with the series' overall theme. Season 5, the last season, finally saw the series world expand by bringing in Superman, again voiced by George Newbern, and of course Lex Luthor, voiced by Clancy Brown. Green Arrow, he was voiced by Chris Hardwick. Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, was voiced by Dermot Mulroney. Hawkman was voiced by Robert Patrick, Terminator 1000 himself. Martian Manhunter was voiced by Dorian Harwood, and Charlie Schlatter was the Flash. Never clear if it's Barry Allen or Wally West. It's a worthwhile series to watch with plenty of great action, good unique spins on most characters, and well thought out plots. Now, since we're dealing with a common genre, most of the remaining titles will have many of the same voice actors, so I'll avoid the redundancy of repeating them. Still mentioning, when there's a big standout name. So, Batman Brave and the Bold. Apparently, Warner Brothers wasn't worried about anyone having Batman fatigue, because just as the Batman went off the air, Cartoon Network aired Batman the Brave and the Bold, obviously drawing from the DC comic book title that first got published in the mid-50s, and over time became the title best known for stories involving superhero team-ups with Batman, which became the framing device for this series. They got Dietrich Bader to voice Batman, so casting a comedic actor to play a comedic Batman, why not? And watching this gives you an idea that serious Batman cartoons had been status quo dating back to 1992. Maybe Warner Brothers felt that such might have become redundant, and maybe Batman could use a breath of fresh air in the spirit of the 60s Batman series. Though kind of tongue-in-cheek, it had the full feel of the DC mythos, still gave us high conflict with many of the classic DC villains. I love the heavy-duty hot rod design for the Batmobile, and it even gave a sequence adapted directly from The Dark Knight Returns. In 2006, it's set in the 31st century. The Legion of Superheroes is a team of teenage heroes from across the galaxy. And they recruit Superboy from the 21st century to help them battle future threats like Imperiex and Brainiac. The show mixes classic DC sci-fi optimism with the coming-of-age themes, focusing on teamwork, identity, and the burden of legacy in a far-future utopia constantly under siege. The show knows its characters and what plots serves them best. A fun series for its 2 seasons. Then Teen Titans, it came out in 2003 before we got Teen Titans Go in the next decade. But it's a team of young heroes: Robin, Starfire, Raven, Beast Boy, and Cyborg. They fight supervillains while navigating friendship, trauma, and adolescence, balancing anime-inspired action with humor and emotional arcs. The series explores darker themes such as abuse, destiny, and loss, most notably through Raven's connection to Trigon and Robin's past with Deathstroke. It is very much a comedic approach to superheroes and has its finger on the pulse of teenagers and their angst. That it is primarily for kids, but parents won't be bored watching it with them. I know because during its run, my daughter couldn't get enough of it because of Raven. Static Shock came out in 2000. It's a animated superhero series connected to the Timverse. A character who was created by Milestone Comics founders Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, Derek T. Dingle, and Christopher Priest. A smart, funny teenager from Dakota City who gains electromagnetic powers after a mysterious event called the Big Bang exposes him and others to mutagenic gas. As Static, Virgil fights crime while balancing high school, family life, and the responsibilities of being a hero, often facing superpowered teens known as Bang Babies. The series does well in blending action, humor, and heart. The series tackles real-world issues like racism, violence, and peer pressure, and stands out for its socially conscious storytelling and memorable crossovers with the DC Universe. Then we have Lunatics Unleashed, coming out in 2005. It was an experiment with mixed results. It was a radical reimagining of the Looney Tunes and set in the year 2772, where descendants of the classic characters gain superpowers after a mere-year strike. Led by Ace Bunny, the lunatics defend Acmetropolis from future villains. The show blends superhero tropes with toned-down loony humor, aiming squarely at the older, action-oriented audience. For me, it could be enjoyed in the same kind of context as DC Comics' Elseworlds tales that put unique creative spins on DC heroes with historical and futuristic settings. Again, an experiment. It was a fun concept to explore. Fun enough. In 2000, we saw X-Men Evolution come out. The X-Men cartoon of the 90s went straight at the setting where the majority of them were in their prime, and Jubilee had just discovered her powers before going to Professor X's school. In this series, the creators decided to flip the script on the property to when most of them were teenagers under Professor X's tutelage and do what they can to help people in danger while dealing with prejudices. The different angle works with the greater focus on teen angst. Then we have Spectacular Spider-Man. In 2003, there was a series that lasted only 13 episodes with Neil Patrick Harris voicing Spider-Man, but this series came out in 2008 with Spider-Man being voiced by Josh Keaton. The Spectacular Spider-Man is an animated series that reimagines Peter Parker's early years as Spider-Man with a sharp focus on character, consequence, and a long-term storytelling. The Spectacular Spider-Man, as an animated series, reimagines Peter Parker's early years as Spider-Man with a sharp focus on character, consequence, and long-term storytelling. Balancing high school life, money, troubles, and fragile friendships, Peter struggles to keep his dual identity intact while learning that every choice he makes as Spider-Man ripples into his personal world. The show modernizes classic Marvel villains such as Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Venom by weaving their origins together through an interconnected criminal world, making each new threat feel like a part of a larger evolving puzzle rather than a standalone encounter. What set the series apart is the emphasis on growth and accountability. Alliances shift and Peter's mistakes often come back to haunt him seasons later. It's got stylized animation inspired by classic comic art and smart, emotionally grounded writing. The Spectacular Spider-Man delivers a coming-of-age story that captures the core of tragedy and heroism of Spider-Man, being powerful enough to help everyone, but never enough to save everything. 2006 was the beginning of Fantastic Four, the world's greatest heroes. Yet another round of Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and The Thing. The Fantastic Four, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, protect Earth from cosmic and scientific threats like Doctor Doom, Galactus, and the Skrulls, with a bold comic panel-inspired art style. The show highlights family, dynamics, scientific adventure, and larger-than-life superhero spectacle. The costume changes. I have to believe that most of us had to adjust in seeing that, a much lighter blue with heavy-duty white lining, but I do think it was very sleek, very great looking, that it subverted any traditional view on it, but the action was great. We got kind of a series with Wolverine at the head, as it was called Wolverine and the X-Men, came out in 2008. After a mysterious disaster fractures the X-Men, Wolverine is forced into the leadership position to reunite the team and prevent a catastrophic future. Featuring a serialized, high-stakes narrative, the show focuses on time travel, mutant extinction, and moral responsibility, presenting one of the most mature and cohesive X-Men animated storylines. Kind of a mix of Iron Man and Spider-Man here. Iron Man Armored Adventures came out in 2008. A younger teenage Tony Stark attends high school while secretly operating as Iron Man using advanced armor design with his friend Pepper Potts. The series reimagines Iron Man's origin with youthful energy, focusing on responsibility, innovation, and legacy, while still adapting the classic villains like the Mandarin. And you know what? Superhero cartoons in the aughts were also educational. Here, starting in 2008 was The Adventures of Nano Boy. It came out on Starz Kids and Family. Yeah, kids might be bored watching the Fantastic Void, so that's why there's Nano Boy, an educational superhero series following Nano, a microscopic hero who explores the human body to solve problems and teach basic science concepts. Designed for young audiences, the show uses superhero framing to explain biology and help in accessible, kid-friendly stories. And since we're talking about educational superheroes, I'm going to talk about how PBS came into the game. For 2007, we'll first talk about Word Girl, a super strong alien girl raised on Earth. She fights goofy villains while expanding viewers' vocabularies. Each episode emphasizes word definitions and usage, combining superhero action with comedy and educational segments that appeal to both kids and adults. Same year, Super Y. It was a literacy-focused animated series where Super Y and his friends enter storybooks to solve problems by changing the narrative. Each episode teaches reading skills such as spelling, vocabulary, and comprehension, empowering kids to see reading as an interactive problem-solving superpower. The characters were Little Pig from the Three Little Pigs, who turned into Alpha Pig with alphabet power, Little Red Riding Hood, who'd turn into Wonder Red with word power, Princess P from Princess and the Pea, she would turn into Princess Presto with spelling power, and Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk's little brother Wyatt, who would turn into Super Y with the power to read. He also had a dog named Puppy who would become Woofster. And as similar as their power sounds, they all had unique ways of helping solve various conflicts, which would always be some dilemma each of them would experience that prompted a call to team up and solve. Something like maybe one of them is struggling in school. They would call on each other to get a related classic story and would gradually spell out a solution like the aforementioned dilemma and would become Study at Home. It helped fill that half hour and kept my kids engaged, and yeah, I'm a sucker for that catchy action theme.
Who's got the power to read? Who answers the call for friends in need?
So that's my take on superheroes in the aughts cartoon series. Agree, disagree, something I left out? Please let me know in the comment section. A link to order my Sledge comic miniseries is in the link below in both digital and paper format. Give it a look. I've only got 5 pages to complete on my Sledge number 4, so keep an eye out for that. Meantime, let's all look for civility amid any bad news out there about social and political strife. Let's not hate, and whoever we meet, let's see as a potential friend. Everyone be safe, and God bless.